Are we really in control? Do we really decide each time we do something? We usually think that this amazing organ, the human brain, is nothing but a thinking machine. But is it? Your daily motivations and actions come from two places: the prefrontal cortex and the reward center in your brain. Our prefrontal cortex allows us to achieve complex thinking, such as understanding physics and long-term vision and planning. Everything that requires discipline, focus, and deep thinking, and projection in the future, such as training, studying, involves the prefrontal cortex. Unless your life is structured around discipline, planning, and self-awareness, most of the time these are the ones running your show: instant gratification, wishful thinking, cognitive dissonance. When instant gratification controls us, the reward center in our brain tells us that spending $600 to get a new iPhone is going to feel good now. Buying that new fancy car that we don't need instead of saving the money for retirement is going to feel good now. Splurging on pizza is going to be good now, and we will bother about weight loss later. All this because what feels good now is good for survival and reproduction. Wishful thinking is basically a disconnect between your present actions and their consequences in your future. A disconnect between your level of planning and preparation and what you should expect to happen to you in the future. For example, you're not in a position to ask for a lot, but you think you deserve the best. You know you're not saving enough, certainly not to buy a house, because instant gratification kept you from saving for a down payment. You're not even saving for retirement, but you think you'll be fine. On top of that, maybe you've been smoking for years, you are now in your 50s, and you really think cancer or a heart attack can't happen to you. Maybe you keep wasting money on those lottery tickets, because eventually you're going to end up winning. And no, somebody doesn't have to win the lottery each time. We are here today because we come from a lineage of fighting, hopeful creatures who believed they would be fine no matter what. But today, in our very complex world, what used to work 500,000 years ago is not enough anymore. Preparation and long-term planning matter a lot. There is another concept that started to affect our species much later than wishful thinking and instant gratification. It's our inability to accept new knowledge and the resistance we offer to it. It is so ingrained in human behavior that modern psychology has a name for it: cognitive dissonance. Cognitive dissonance happens when we are presented with new knowledge and strong evidence that what we believe is wrong, and yet we keep believing in the old wrong belief.
Do you understand the concept of the tooth fairy?
Let's look at an example here. Years ago, you might have heard of something called the French paradox, which says that the French, even though they eat a lot of saturated fat, are protected from cardiovascular diseases because they drink wine. It turns out that there is no French paradox.
French physicians underreport ischemic heart disease deaths on death certificates by as much as 20%, according to a World Health Organization investigation. So if you correct for that, then France basically comes back right in line with the death versus animal fat and death versus cholesterol lines, with about 4 times the fatal heart attack rates as Japan, and decades after 4 times the animal fat consumption.
And that there is no safe level of alcohol drinking, even from wine. This is the position of the Center for Disease Control. While some studies have found improved health outcomes among moderate drinkers, it's impossible to conclude whether these improved outcomes are due to moderate alcohol consumption or other differences in behaviors or genetics between people who drink moderately and people who don't. This is the position of the National Cancer Institute. There is a strong scientific consensus of an association between alcohol drinking and several types of cancer. In its report on carcinogens, The National Toxicology Program of the US Department of Health and Human Services lists consumption of alcoholic beverages as a non-human carcinogen. This is what Susan Gapster from the American Cancer Society says. There is a very clear link between alcohol consumption and cancer of the head and neck. Science tells you that any level of alcohol, including wine, is not healthy, and that you can find healthy phytoelements in other non-alcoholic foods.
Now, one way you can measure the levels of antioxidants in anything is called the ORAC value. ORAC stands for oxygen radical absorption capacity. The higher the ORAC value, the more antioxidants you have. So let's look at white wine. Is it colored? Teeny weeny. So you get about 400 ORAC units. How about rosé wine? Not as colored, maybe you get 1,000. So let's buy, how about 100, and this is all for 100 grams. So everything is basically, we're comparing apples to apples. So let's say I put 100 grams of the best extra virgin olive oil from Italy and drink that every day. Well, it's a lot of fat, but you'll get about the same amount of polyphenols as drinking 1 glass of rosé wine or 3 glasses of white wine. But let's say I just want to eat a red apple. Could be a green apple, it doesn't matter. All of a sudden, I'm getting a pretty good slug of polyphenols. Now, an apple a day very well could keep the doctor away. Of course, that also means about 20 apples a day will also keep the doctor away, probably 20 times more effectively.
The link between alcohol consumption and several types of cancer, including breast cancer and colon cancer, has strongly been established. But because you like wine, you cling to the old piece of knowledge. Wine is healthy.
There's something about the French that seems to be protecting them, and we're not sure what it is we're looking for.
So, how can you avoid falling for instant gratification, wishful thinking, and cognitive dissonance? You must realize that too much short-term thinking will probably reduce the quality of your life in the long term. Understand that achieving great things takes time, effort, and perseverance, and a lot of preparation and planning. Few people ever achieve anything great overnight with no training at all. It is totally unrealistic to believe that we always can have what we want instantly. Realize if you can have something instantly with not too much work, it means that probably anybody can do it and it's not going to be that special. Of course, you must live in the now to enjoy life. Do it. But you also must make the habit to spend some time thinking about your future and what you want to achieve long term. It's a question of balance. Besides, you don't have the choice here. If you want to enjoy future present moments, you're going to have to plan and prepare. So be aware of what's happening in your life and identify what are the forces directing your actions. Realize that if you are not careful and don't practice some form of self-reflection and self-observation, most of the time, instant gratification, wishful thinking, cognitive dissonance will be ruling your life instead of your thinking brain. Good luck to you.